Hey guys, how's it going? So this week is the Cascade Classic out in Oregon. It's one of my favorite races. Between my intrinsic interest in that racing style and the fact that I have a couple of athletes doing it and I get a lot of questions from people about stage racing or even just training hard from day to day, I thought I would use this as an excuse to put out a handful of videos focusing on stage racing preparation and nutrition and tactics and overall strategies for how to try to do well or how to finish a stage race, maybe if that's your goal. So here goes. Stage races are pretty fun because there's a lot of racing, compacted into a pretty short period of time, and there's a lot of opportunities for different types of racers to, potentially do well or get good results. Whether you're a crit racer that has a good sprint, or a really good endurance rider that has good aerobic fitness and maybe is trying to go for the overall, or maybe you can't time trial and you're a small guy but you have great, power to weight ratio and you're trying to go for, a good stage result on a mountaintop finish, for example. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of extra dimensions to doing a stage race as opposed to a one day, because you're obviously racing from day to day, so the stress and fatigue compounds from day to day, so you have to kind of take that into account as you're approaching the race. So going into any stage race, I think it's really good to go into it looking at the stages and trying to identify a couple of things. One, you should identify what the trouble areas are going to be for you. Whether you're trying to win the overall and you just know there's a couple of spots where maybe you're going to have trouble getting over a big climb that's pretty steep, or maybe you're a good climber but you know that the time trial is going to be a place that you're trying to limit your losses. You should look at what areas or what times during the week are going to be the hardest for you, and try to plan ahead so that you have hopefully extra energy and focus to get through those rough times, so that when the opportunities arise and maybe you can try to get a stage result, you will have the energy to do that because you're not dropped, or you didn't have to struggle through some part of the race that was difficult for you, but maybe with a lack of preparation it was almost took you out of the race, for example. Take a look at identifying what your overall goals are and what your daily goals are. So if you're going for the overall, you have to do at least moderately well every day, and more than anything you have to make sure that you don't have any big mishaps where you lose a lot of time on any given day. So it doesn't matter if you get on the podium or you get on the top 10 on any stage, you just can't lose a bunch of time ever throughout the week. So you can't lose 5 minutes in the time trial because of some mechanical issue, or because you want to save energy for the next stage. If you're going for stages, you can definitely do that. If you're going for the overall, you have to be on it every day. That doesn't mean that you have to race aggressively, you just have to make sure that you don't have any big missteps. On the other hand, if you're not trying to go for the overall because that's not your priority or your skill set, you should look at the stages that you could do well at and focus on those, and look for opportunities where you could attack late in the race or get in the big break that might have a chance to do well on the stage, and look at the stages that aren't going to suit you well and just try to get through those. You really don't need to put in a lot of effort. You just do the least amount of effort possible to get through the stages that don't suit you. So if I was going to go to Cascade but I didn't have any concern for the overall classification and I just wanted to go after stages, I would take stock of where my fitness was at and see in my mind whether or not I thought I was likely to do well in the time trial or on the climbing stages or in one of the flatter road stages, and just dismiss all the ones that I don't think I'm likely to do well. So if I think I could do an okay time trial but there's no way I could get a top 10 or a top 5, and that's kind of the benchmark by which I would consider that to be a good result, I'm not going to care about the time trial. I'm just going to ride it to get in the top half and make sure I don't get time cut, but I'm going to save my energy for the climbing stage that's the next day, for example. Let's say maybe you're a crit rider and you have a good sprint, but you don't have great climbing legs and you can't do an excellent time trial. That's fine. I mean, you might be a great asset to your team because you might be able to do a lot of work for your teammates who might be good climbers or good for the overall, and you can try to conserve energy when you're not needed for them in order to be your best on the day of the crit. let's say that you are going for the overall classification and you want to, get a top 10 or a top 5 or, even win, you shouldn't go into the race with that being at the forefront of your mind. You should go into each stage trying to make the most of that stage, and if the opportunity presents itself, you should go for it and try to win or get on the podium or get a good result and put time into your rivals. If you don't have the opportunity, at the very least you just need to conserve energy as much as possible so you're as strong as possible for the subsequent race days, but you should also make sure that you don't lose time. You can get through an entire stage race and never be in the top 10, but as long as you don't lose time, if you just lose a few seconds on the winner each stage, most of your rivals will probably have a bad day where they might lose 2 or 3 or 4 minutes in the time trial or on a mountaintop finish. And as long as you're just not losing time, you're gonna be at the front of the field at the end of the race. Don't think about a week's worth of racing, because in order to get to Sunday, you have to get through Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and not lose time each of those days. So each day, just go in trying to not lose time and not have trouble where you can avoid it. And if you do get into trouble, just do everything you need to prevent that from losing you time. You should definitely go into a stage race with a lot of forethought about what your nutrition is going to be like and what your recovery is going to be like from day to day. I think a lot of people really have a lot of trouble because they don't eat well enough going into the race, and then immediately after each stage they don't recover quickly by taking in fluids and taking in calories right away. I think a lot of times people finish a stage and then they ride back to the car and then they drive back to their housing, and they might only take in a small snack over the course of an hour or two right after the stage. But for, let's say, somebody that's doing the pro race and they're racing 90 to 110 miles for each of the road stages, they're probably going to want to take in 1,000 calories in the first hour and 2 or 3 bottles of fluid in order to facilitate the best possible recovery. So you really can't ignore that, and you should always go into the race making a plan for your nutrition from day to day and your nutrition right after the stages, because that can really make a huge difference for your recovery and how well you do from day to day. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to cover for this particular video. The next one I want to cover, some thoughts on nutrition and recovery from day to day, and then I'll go over a few of my thoughts on each of the individual stages. So hopefully that was interesting to you and useful, whether you're doing Cascade or another stage race. And definitely like this video and subscribe if you like the material that I'm making. And for sure, put comments below or questions, because I'm always looking to respond to whatever it is that you need. So that's it for today, and I'll see you next time.